Jai Ma, Jai Guru Deva. Welcome, everyone, to this companion study of Bhaja Govindam with Sadhvi Aparna. A reminder that this series will be on YouTube, and this will be limited to our community of Vedic Study Circle members, but a reminder that any shares that you give, your voice, or if your chat messages are read out as they are read out, that this will be going up on Acharya Shunya's YouTube channel in a playlist for Vedic Study Circle members. So this series, we're engaging in this limited series. We're exploring 8 themes that arise in the Bhaja Govindam by Adi Shankaracharya. And we're exploring 8 themes that arise in this Moha Mudgara. 4 key ways in which we stay trapped in samsara, and 4 key ways in which we may find liberation from samsara. And to refresh your understanding, we encourage you to see the specific verses for each theme that are available in depth with Acharya Shunya's original Bhaja Govindam teachings. We'll first begin, as we settle in, we'll begin with our opening prayers, our prayers of gratitude and humility to our parampara, our lineage, this prayer of welcome and salutation to the many teachers and that have the divine source, and then the teachers that have been giving us these teachings and sharing this wisdom in an unbroken, fertile river to us today. And so, if you wish to join in chanting as the prayers come on your screen, or simply to listen, however may resonate with you. And on an inhale, Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Prakashaya Namaha. Om Ayodhyanathaya Namaha. Om Shunyacharya Namaha. Om Atmatattvam Namaha. Om Vidyatattvam Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Beautiful. Thank you all. A reminder as well that when you share, when you ask questions or share your deep contemplations and insights, to share those in a universal way, which may be of benefit to all in the community. And sharing in this universal way also allows you to have some clarity, to form some clarity on the question or comment that you will be sharing with us. So with that, I would like to invite Sadhvi Aparna to take us forward.
Jai Ma. Thank you, Kalyani. I think we're ready to, thanks. Perfect. So, want to welcome everyone. It has been a profound month. How has it been for you? For me, many changes and many contemplations on this theme that we began last month, which was around impermanence, and this idea of what can we let go of? What is the importance of understanding the real, the permanent Govindam, and what is important about understanding what is not Govindam, what is not permanent, what is not in the realm of Ishvara, in the sense of what are we looking at in samsara? What is our everyday life made up of in samsara? So I thought today we could do a little bit of because it's been a month since we've met, I thought it would be a good time for us to connect about what we've all been, I know, fruitfully churning over the last month. I am going to make today, many of you reached out and said you were interested in having a few participatory and interactive modules in this companion series. And I think this is a great opportunity. One of the ideas of having the companion series to these teachings, these text teachings that Acharya Shunya has given, we all spend, if you've experienced the original teachings from Acharya Shunya, or if you're joining us after having watched the recordings of those teachings, as Kalyani shared, there are a series of, over the course of 6 months, we got to explore in great depth, word by word, each of the verses of Bhaja Govindam. And this is a traditional way that we experience Shastra, or text, sacred text. And so this word by word exploration. And for those of you that got to experience it live, or if you've had a chance to watch all of those teachings at once, over the last several months, what you will have found is that Acharya Shunya gave not only word for word discussions, but also went into a series of sort of a contextual understanding. So what are we looking at in this? Where does this text come from? Where does Adi Shankaracharya come from? What are the core principles that we need to understand? And how can this relate to our studentship and our understanding of this? How do these other concepts that are coming in relate to this? So the companion series, both of, this companion series especially, is not meant, these are not meant to displace these teachings. These are meant to take those teachings that we spent, learning and hearing. We talked about the different, sort of stages of learning, and we've gone through Shravanam, right? We've experienced a lot of input coming in over the last several months of teachings and learning about concepts initially. But these companion studies, this companion study with me is meant to start to apply. And how do we start to apply these teachings? And so in this, I want to bring a real meaty understanding for each of us of how to take these concepts that may seem maybe they seem very removed for you, or maybe they seem very easy for you. And yet, are these easy concepts? Are these easy? It's one thing to say, Bhaja Govindam, turn to God, turn to that which is eternal, turn away, oh deluded mind, the mudamate, that mind that is stuck in moha, or that confusion around samsara, this confusion of our everyday life. So I think let's have a quick feedback. How many of you who are here live today, and also if you're watching this over the recording, how many of you, when you hear that first invocation from Bhaja Govindam, how many of you felt, yes, oh, my deluded mind, I was able to come right into this. Yes, I get it. I'm supposed to be turning towards Govindam. For whom was that easy? For whom was that, yeah, got it. Totally. I get it. When you hear it, and I'm saying it a little facetiously, but truly, I can imagine, as I have also experienced, it seems very easy in this context. Can you share in the chat? How many of you, upon first initial hearing, you're inspired, you're excited, maybe even, Is anyone, like you heard this, and you were like, yes, this is exciting. This is inspiring. I wanna get there. And yes, I do have a deluded mind. That's exactly me. I get it. I am the person in the beginning. I am the guy sitting on the banks of the river, focusing on rules of grammar. How many of us have had that instant understanding of, yes, that's me? Yes, we have a few shares in the chat. Yep, it hits home. It hits home that instantly got it. Excited and hopeful to get undiluted. Yeah, to let go of those delusions. Always feeling, yes, this is part of what has attracted you to these teachings. Um, Another person shares, yes, felt the hammer. As a reminder, this text, Bhaja Govindam, is also called the Moha Mudgara, or the hammer of our delusions, the hammer of that confusion that we have of what's real and what's not real, what's permanent and what's impermanent. And then we have someone saying, I have a deluded mind for sure, but Govinda Govinda will help me break through the delusion. So there's faith. And in fact, that person's name is Shraddha and means faith. So they're really keying into their spiritual word to remember, which is faith. And then we have from our host, it's easy to hear and apply to another's life situation. And it's an ongoing practice to apply to my own. Yes, this is part of the delusion of reality, right? That we have I was sharing with my partner who shared this a couple of days ago. It's so easy to have vairagyam about other people's experiences. Isn't that the best part? Don't we just have such a great, keen insight into other people's problems? You know what your problem is. Now, can we turn it to ourselves? Right? Yeah. So this is some of the ways in which this text specifically is starting to hammer home, right? It's starting to hammer home. And another person shares, definitely knew what she was talking about, and this is what I needed to go forward. Yeah. So upon initial hearing of this text and these concepts from Acharya Shunya, many of you, I think, including myself, felt, oh yeah, we had some resonance with it and realized like this is a path. Acharya Shunya talked about these two paths that are available to all of us. One is which is called Shreyas, and one of which is called Preyas. And so if we look at samsara, if we look at our experience of life, then we have an opportunity, and we have this opportunity to go towards the world, more towards these things which delude us, towards these attachments, towards these desires, towards these incessant urges that our mind can create. And that's what we'll be talking about in this next sort of phase of this experience, this companion study, is around those trishnas, or those intense desires that plague our mind and that we also feed, and that these are these attachments. We also have a share that yes, in knowing this, there's a familiarity in hearing these teachings and knowing that this is the path towards Govindam. Many hammers have swung for me. Yeah, so in this last month, the idea of where we sort of began our journey together is that it isn't enough to have heard this knowledge once. And that's a fundamental, it may be possible due to lifetimes of hearing this knowledge again and again, that in this lifetime, it is totally possible that in this lifetime, you receive this knowledge, this hearing once, and have done the requisite purification of your ego, clarity and shaucham processes, or cleaning up of the mind and its thought processes, so that when you hear this knowledge, it immediately enters in and lands so deeply and resonantly that you instantly know. You instantly are then able to experience the truth of Govindam. But I would posit that Adi Shankaracharya, who is such a magnificent and wonderful teacher, has given us this entire text and many more to say it's probably unlikely that that's happening right now. And by virtue of us getting to hear it, it may not be happening for us right now. And so those of us that get to hear this text and get to have access to the Bhaja Govindam are those of us who are simultaneously ready to hear it and need the hammer. It isn't, so I want to take that and sit with that for just a little bit together. Like, let's just sit with those both end ideas of part of the, part of our thirsting, our Trishna as spiritual aspirants can be this hunger. Trishna is considered those desires which are not only our normal everyday desires. And we're going to go into all of those. How do we discern what are normal everyday desires, and how do we discern this other kind of thirsting that acts as, called Trishna, that acts like an uncontrollable wildfire, which is Icha, or regular natural desires, plus Lobha, greed. And so when our mind, our deluded mind, that foolish mind, when that foolish mind connects those desires plus an intense greed for more, then we get this kind of unquenchable desire, like a wildfire, like an out of controlness, a never enoughness, a thirst that cannot be quenched. And so this Trishna is something that all of us here have or will experience. And it is the nature of the mind that is holding on. So we're asking, in this companion series, we're looking at 4 themes of things to let go and 4 themes of things to pick up. So what are we letting go and what are we picking up? The nature of our mind, and everyone's mind, as Acharya Shunya shared, is to be prone to this kind of hunger, this kind of thirst, this kind of unquenchable desire and greed. And the whole setup is set to increase more of that. So how does that relate to each of us? And how does that relate to what we're doing here? It means that we are accompanied. Our mind has this thirst. We're trained in it. We're selectively encouraged for it. What is ambition? What is a billionaire? What is a desire for more and more and more? Where do we see it around us, and where is that worshipped? Where is that propensity for more, not only satisfied, but worshipped and ambition and excited and stimulated by the world around us? And so Bhaja Govindam means turn yourself, sing the name of Govindam, find yourself what is eternal and what is permanent, and where are we singing ourselves towards something else? Where are we actually putting our attention again and again towards something else? So I want to add a few more chats, and we'll share some more and see where we're at right now. So we have, yes, that many hammers have swung for you over the last month. And Also, we have a few people joining us on the road. Wonderful. They're able to listen in. All right, great. So we started our journey together with the first verse, which gave us the sort of preface of the story of Bhaja Govindam, which is that we have Adi Shankaracharya, our teacher of Vedanta, our enlightened soul, and he's accompanied by a few students, and those students also are advanced seekers. They are students along the path who have become acharyas in their own right, and they are traveling together, and they are traveling together in a kula, a community, and a satsang. These are some of what will these benefits of being together in satsang is one of the main ways in which we can flower together and that we can grow together. So as we continue this journey together, know that that community of truth and the community of wise people will also help us to turn our attention again and again back to Govindam, back to Govindam. We we found ourselves on the banks of a river and seeing an elderly gentleman, a wise elderly gentleman, someone who has comported himself with dignity, who is sitting there and has reached a stage in his life where he is giving to himself and supporting himself, and he's decided that the way to do that is to study. He's always wanted to, and he finally has the time to study the rules of Sanskrit grammar. Seems like an ethical choice. Great thing to do. Shouldn't we all be turning our heads and our minds and our hearts towards improving ourselves in these ways? Sanskrit grammar, maybe it's studying this or studying that. What a wonderful thing. And so that's what sets us up in the story. And what we first are challenged with is this wise teacher saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you focusing on this thing for? What is the point? What are you doing? Look, deluded mind, just turn your attention, worship Govinda, worship Brahman, worship Ishvara, worship the truth again and again. These rules of grammar will not save you at the time of your death. This part will not save you at the time of your death. This whole verse, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte Sanite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrina Karane. That verse again and again is going to be repeated again and again. And I think it's important for us to pay attention that it is the thing that's repeated. And so what is the import of that? Why is that important? It's not just about the deluded mind. It is a wake-up call. Like if someone's calling you, you idiot. It doesn't mean that you're not smart in the ways of the world. It doesn't mean that your mind isn't working according to samsara. It means your mind is holding on to something that is not real. It is focusing its attention on the unreal. It is focusing its attention on that which is impermanent. And so that impermanence, that rules of grammar in this case, but Acharya Shunya ji also shared, think to what are, all of the ways that our mind may come up with to focus on. And this is, what are all of the things in your life that you are finding really important? They're really taking primacy in your life. They are taking your attention. What are the impermanent things that you have been putting your attention on? And then the next part of that, and this is where I really want us to kind of contemplate on today, in context with that impermanence and in context with the whole text, is that rules of grammar will not save you at the time of your death. So we talked about the deluded mind. What is it deluded from? It's deluded by thinking that the world is permanent. It's deluded by thinking that all of the actions that take up our focus and our attention are actually important. And then what this is saying, no, that's a fundamental misunderstanding. There's a fundamental ignorance there, and you have to break through that. But why is that important? Because there's this moment, and it's referring to this moment at the moment of the time of your death. And that is a part that we need to keep remembering. We remember that we have a deluded mind. That's good. What are we deluded in? We think that everything around us is permanent, but it is not permanent. And why is this important? Because of that moment of death. And so let's, Soham, can you share the impermanence slide? This is just a remembrance from our last session. Impermanence. Everything we count on to be permanent is impermanent. Okay, let's all just sit and take a nice deep breath in. Close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Hold it gently for a moment. Release out through your nose. A nice deep breath in and release. Another deep breath in and release. Your eyes closed. I'm going to read this out to you. Think on it. Think on this truth. Everything we count on to be permanent is actually impermanent. It is not permanent. We keep hoping and desiring for this life to be different. That is, we hope that these things that we actually know are impermanent, we hope for them to be permanent. We hope for them to be real. But this keeps us trapped. Right now, in this moment, in this tiny sliver of time, in any tiny sliver of time, we have an opportunity to turn from what we know to be impermanent, from what we hope to be permanent, but are told is not, towards something that is permanent, towards unchanging truth. This moment in time, what are the things over this last month, especially, that you have found yourself turning towards that are not permanent? Are there things that you hoped would be permanent, but upon the reflection of this last month, you've realized actually are not permanent? How has your understanding over the last month or beyond changed? So at this point in time, we can gently rub your hands together. Focus your attention on your open palms. With the reflection, we see ourselves. And you can rub your head, your throat, your third eye, your heart, wherever you're finding yourself needing a little reminder of who you are and what is permanent. And gently come back. And you can stop the screen share. If you have some paper with you, this would be a good time to just jot down. We're going to take maybe 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. I want you to write down a few notes on what you observed, what you remembered, and what has changed for you. Where have you contemplated upon impermanence in your life? And is there anything that's popped through immediately with this last moment of contemplation? And I'm interested in hearing, what have you observed? And if anything's changed. It'll take a few moments. Mm. And if you want to draw your contemplations to a brief close, we are going to share. If you are joining us and you're able to share your screen, that would be great, your video screen. I'd love to see you. I have you in gallery mode, although for those of you who are joining us on YouTube later, you will not be able to see them, but just know that we have a bright and shining group of seekers that you are always welcome to join. All right. We do have one share in the chat, and this will be especially pertinent for our moving on in this, which says, Rochelle shares that Shinji emphasized that the first verse's refrain is a very deep insight. And this one verse alone is one that can lead us to greater light. And that's true. that part of the greater insight. Most of it's said that with most of the Vedic Shastras, the deep Vedanta texts, especially the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, it said that, and the Vedas, it said that even one verse of any one of these contemplated on and immersed in and understood fully reveals the whole. And so we can be as one with the knowledge, even down to the single word Om, that we can understand with the deepest reflection of our self. We can have all of the knowledge of the Vedas. And this is a lot of what this particular text is supporting, which is this particular text is it's not one in which we get to hang out in our highest ideals, our highest mental projections. It's one in which we have to acknowledge that we are not there yet. And here's the ways in which we may not be there yet. And here are the things that keep us from, quote, not being there yet. And this is what we will be exploring. So this text is hammers don't exist in other environments, but hammers exist here. Why do we have a hammer? Why do we have that really tangible symbol? Well, it's because we're dealing with very tangible things. We're trying to clear away very tangible obstructions to our path to self-realizations. And so this is a text for those of us who recognize that we are in the mud and we want to get to our original shape underneath all the mud to find our enlightened self within the clay. And so understanding even that one verse is really key, because it gives us a context in which we know where we're going and why we're going there. So from our contemplations, I have opened up the floor. Devi Priya, I would like to call on you. You have something to share. And you're muted right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Aparna, Jai Ma. And so good to be here with everybody and to have this chance to reflect. I had an experience this week where my daughter was quite ill after a procedure. And after she was medically cleared, but was still having some symptoms, I found myself very restless and very anxious. And in samsara, anyone would say to me, well, of course, you're the mom. Of course you're anxious. Makes sense. But I, from the teachings, thought, oh, there must be an attachment here. And I thought, oh, I'm going to gently look at it. Even as I say it, I find myself, and I've thought, oh, wow, I'm attached to her being permanent, my kiddo. And she's impermanent too, even those who are so close to me. And so I would just say dipping my toe into that, and then out, and then in, because it is so tender. I can feel it in my body. But it was helpful because it grounded me in why I was still so stuck while also having understanding of it. So it was such an interesting hammer. It reminds me of the hammers that kids used to get at the circus that look like a hammer, but they're full of air. So it's like it does the movement of slapping, but it doesn't hurt me. It actually helps me. Or I don't know if it helps me, but so yeah, that was a really profound moment that I remember starting this work thinking, I'll think about that about everything except not my kids. And then in this week I was able to. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. I really appreciate it. You're muted still.
We'll get into the nature of how to engage and explore relationship in this context, because that is one of the things that is one of the hammers. But I want to also touch on that we are not asked to not be in community or in relationship, right? And so one of the ways, and I appreciate that you said, I'm just putting a toe into the pool, right? I'm just dipping in a little bit. And the reason why you're just dipping in is because it's scary, right? It's actually terrifying. And this is, I think, the impact of when you really start to go into this, that fear that comes up when we start to like not just talk about it. And this is actually what I wanted to like touch on. Like, it's one thing to say, I am unattached, I'm free, I'm focusing on Govindam. And it is another thing entirely to say, I'm looking at my relationships. I'm looking at my maybe my ambition, or my thing that's ruled my life. Like I've always wanted to do this, and everything I've done has been towards achieving this goal, even in terms of maybe our spiritual pathway. I've always, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. To really look at those things and sit with our ego and our higher awareness and say, what happens if I don't have this? What happens if this thing is impermanent, and what comes forward is fear? Because that's where we're attached. So looking to those fears of like, oh, and this doesn't mean to then, because the natural next step for a mind that is afraid, that is we have this understanding of something called raga and dvesha. Raga is our attachment and our attraction to things. We pull things towards us. And dvesha is our aversion. We push things away from us. Both of those things are ways in which the mind holds on. Actually, both of those are a holding on. They're both an attachment. They're both a grasping to samsara, grasping to reality, and grasping to, or reality, quote unquote, grasping to what we think is real, what is impermanent. So we think that maybe like the things that how many of you, and raise a hand, are comfortable saying that you understand how the things that you like, you hold on to? Feel comfortable with that? Does everybody like, oh, I really like this. I can see where I might be holding on a little bit much. Now contemplate also the things that you don't like. Can you imagine a way in which that which you don't like, you are also holding on to? Yeah. It takes a little bit more. We've got a few more, a few less hands going up. Think on that as we start the share process, because this is the underlying way in which, like, what do we mean by worldly attachments? It's very easy to see like, I'm attached to this, or I'm not attached to that, for things we don't care about or things we really care about. But there's another piece to all of this, which is the things that we don't like, and how are we holding on to those things with equal fervor, because it's the same grasping process in the mind. So in terms of your relationship, Devi Priya, with your daughter, going through this terrible experience, terrible for her, terrible for you, like the experience of going through, I'm here to tell you, the experience of going through a traumatic health crisis is not fun. It's really unpleasant. And what are we holding on to? What are you holding on to in this context? And I don't want you to necessarily feel like you are being encouraged to not hold on to that permanent part of your daughter. And so one of the ways in which we can sort of start to begin to put our fingers and our toes in the cold pond and the cold muck of this work is to say, okay, what am I holding on less to? What can I hold on? What can I I'm holding my hands out in an open palm. What can I sort of hold with an open-handed approach with a little less grasping? And perhaps it it will help to lessen some of that fear. This is part of the way in which we can sort of I don't want to say train our mind, but gently work with our mind that immediately grasps onto with fear, is I don't have to, maybe give yourself permission to, especially before we get into the relationship part of letting go. I don't have to drop these things. I just have to open up my hands from my tight grip and hold with an open palm. This is an imagery of how we can hold without grasping, or support, how we can be a support, a dharmic support to these things that are impermanent in the world without grasping so closely. But it's a good contemplation and a really powerful one, especially between a mother and her child, between any parent and their child. That is a very powerful relationship and a very powerful understanding to allow this other part, this other self, this other fully realized self to have their experience as well. Yeah, and Devi Priya shares in the chat that this experience has helped her to see her daughter's inner permanence. Yes, where do we hold it? We can hold on to that which is permanent and release that which is not permanent. So as we go through these things, focusing on Atman, which is Govindam, which is Ishvara, which is Brahman. Hold on to that part, letting go of that which is not. All right, Pragya, you would like to share.
Thank you. So I had a really profound contemplation at our last Bhaja Govindam Contemplation Study Circle session. And it was that what is something that is kind of bad for you right now, and how would it feel if it never changed, right? And that thing that I was holding on to was this feeling of being unloved in samsara, in this world. And I'm always kind of like looking for it, and it never seems to be enough. So that ties in exactly with what you were saying of being attached to something that isn't good, that doesn't feel good. And it was so profoundly affected me that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to all the Bhaja Govindams from Shunyaji. And in about the second or third, she starts talking about the samsara setup. And chasing love is such a common thing. And it's like, oh my God, it's part of the setup.
Yeah.
So it kind of like allowed me to stop this process in my mind of trying to figure out why I'm unloved.
Right.
And the other thing was, though, is I had been like meditating with the 9 aspects of the self that Shunyaji gave us in Sovereign Self Paradigm, and one of them is prema, and then she had a session in Bhakti Yoga about prema with Ishvara, and I'm like, yeah. So when it was like, well, how do you feel if you think that you're never going to escape this feeling of being unloved? And I'm like, I want to go there where I am loved.
Yeah.
And it changed me so much. And just my crash course in Bhaja Govinda, like listening pretty much throughout the month. And I kind of feel like samsara is dissolving in a way for me. I'm kind of like lifted and perceiving it in a different way, so that I'm like not as much immersed in it. Like I was at the grocery store and I just had this feeling of like just looking at people with curiosity and trying to, find their higher self, and then also their samsaric self and like how they wanted to present themselves in samsara. And it was really delightful, um, that we can actually just enjoy ourselves in samsara a little bit when we're more connected with Govindam.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Pragya. That's a really powerful share, and the power of these verses to that like what's a hammer? It's not just a hammer beating you up. It's a hammer breaking away the crust, right? And what's the crust? It's our wrong thinking, right? It's a hammer saying like, wait, there's like you can hold on to this outer perspective, or you can get to the meat of the truth of what is. And that is, that is something that we're going to keep diving into around these attachments, especially of like all these worldly attachments, and how we want the setup to be, how that desire for the setup to be different is that is the illusion. That is one of the most profound ways in which we continue to recommit to impermanence, to prayas, is by our desire and our hope that things would be different, and that it should be different, and that why isn't the world different, and our frustration and our anger about that, and our sadness and our loss. And have any of you had have any of you had a dream in which someone that you knew acted against you in that dream, and you got mad, and then you woke up and you were still mad at that person? It's insane. You know that there's like, they didn't do anything. You're still mad. I'm seeing a lot of smiling faces, probably of those of us who are in relationship. This is, an intimate relationship with a partner. This is like a classic thing. Yes. And here we have an invitation to realize that actually all of this is that dream. So all the ways in which we're pissed off, we're ticked off at the world at people for not being who we want them to be, at the setup for not being what it should be, for life for not being fair, for relationships for not being fulfilling, for people not seeing us, for the world not giving us our kudos or our flowers, or for all of the ways in which we are disappointed and angry at the setup. That is another way in which we're still engaging in this dream in ways that feel incredibly real. So much so that we wake up every day and go like, oh yes, here I am, I'm back. Yeah. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, I was pissed off at that person. Oh yeah, I'm mad about that thing. Oh yeah, I'm like we reconnect with the illusion again and again. We reconnect with the impermanent as though we're singing a prayer to it, and so being aware and having these wake up moments like Pragya shared of like, wait a minute, am I creating this? Am I creating the suffering as well by recommitting to it again and again, of like these long-standing, what are called samskaras, or these long-standing sort of patterns of ways of thinking? This is like, it may go from lifetime to lifetime. And this is also why, to take it back to that first verse and its import and how it actually informs every other verse, these ways of thinking go from lifetime to lifetime, from moment to moment. We no sooner let it go than it pops up again. We no sooner like, yes, it's all a rich tapestry and I have achieved enlightenment. Then, wham, there it comes again. There goes my attachment again. There goes this subtle and pervasive thought that actually, once we become attuned to the quality and the nature of all of the ways in which our mind can pervasively convince us that which is impermanent is permanent, then we start to have the tools, we start to have the capacity to interrupt that, that thought pattern, that way of being. And this is the profound work of why we want to keep going with this and really churn it for ourselves, is because those thoughts, those pervasive thoughts, come up again and again. It isn't necessarily when we're all calm and relaxed that we are struck with these, but it is where we blindsided, and how do we become less blindsided? Where can we make a practice of turning our attention to? And ultimately, the reason why Adi Shankaracharya says, and all of his students say, to turn our attention back to that is because there will be this moment. There's a moment at the time of death. This is why that's important. It keeps coming up. There's a moment when whatever we have, the accumulation of our habits of thinking are all we have left at that moment of death. And that moment is when we determine the quality of the next life. That moment is when we truly have an opportunity to move towards Ishvara, move towards Govindam, move again in this direction or again in another direction. So we don't know when that moment's going to come. So how do we work on that moment? That's the point of this text, is each of us, by virtue, we can determine that each of us, by virtue of having this exposure to this text, having been able to come through that teaching, having a teacher, having an intellect that can understand it, all of these factors have come into play in this special moment. And we do not know that moment of death. Life, even our own life, is impermanent. The life of this body is impermanent. The life of your children is impermanent. The life of the world around us is impermanent. And so we have no guarantee on what that is, when that moment will come. So the work to do as seekers is to get ourselves again and again, familiarize ourselves again and again, work on that understanding of, like, this is impermanent, this is permanent. This is something that's distracting me, and this is something that's taking me towards Govindam. This is real, and this is unreal. This is truth, and this is untruth. So the more we do that, the more we churn, the more we talk, the more we contemplate, the more we journal, the more we pray, the more we write, the more we listen in satsang, the more we connect with other people in right community, the more likely that it is that default state, that default thought becomes Govindam. And this is also why throughout the text that first verse is chanted again and again, because it's honing and it's training our mind to get there. So, would anyone else like to share some of what they've learned? That was a powerful experience of insight and an application. We've had 2 of those. Did anyone else notice that something has changed in their thoughts over the last month, or their thoughts on permanence and impermanence? Has there been anything that's shown up for anyone that they realized they were thinking of in a permanent or even defeatist manner that has maybe opened up for them? Because that's another aspect of this. There's many ways in which we may find that our illusion of what is permanent or impermanent leads our minds to be in that sort of catastrophizing mode, right? Nothing will change. Everything's stuck. So when we get overwhelmed and feeling defeated in samsara, that catastrophizing, or that belief that everything is permanent, translates to everything is permanently bad, or it's headed down. Or, has anybody experienced an opening around that? Maybe because it works both ways, right? The things that are really great are not permanent, and the really fun and to experience are not permanent, but also the things that are really not fun to experience are also impermanent. Yeah. David, did you have anything to share?
I was just thinking about when you were talking about wanting the world to stay the same and looking outside the world, but I was also thinking about your relationship with the person that you are, your own ego. How often we think about wanting to feel that that needs to change. Like how I am isn't the way I need to be in order to learn and understand this material that we're studying. When the truth is, you don't need to do anything like that. In my experience, it seems that sometimes you need to let go of stuff, and the things that are pushing you to think that you're not good enough or right just needs to be in front of you so that you can see those thoughts. And if you see those thoughts, then you cannot react to those thoughts or that. So that's what I was thinking about, is the relationship with yourself. The thing that I was contemplating on with impermanence was the relationships on all levels with yourself, with individuals and groups, communities, all the way up to your nation and the world. They're all impermanent, and how that your reaction to that is. But then it also came back to like yourself and your own little neurotic behaviors and how they act out and how they affect you learning this and what you need to do with those. So
Yeah. It always does come back to our own neurotic behaviors and how we engage, I think the desire to, the desire to change the world because it's not what we believe it should be is inherently connected with our fears of our ego and how we're not the way we should be. And I think that it's a great insight to see where our inner acceptance is or is not, also based on how we react and respond to the world around us and to the circumstances that are constantly changing around us. Is there, well, first of all, is there anyone else who would like to share? Yes, Kalyani.
I was thinking about the last contemplation that you just posed about feeling perhaps defeatist and such, and just this whole. I have a shoulder injury that I've managed to re-injure in the same way that I had a couple of years back, and so of course it's kind of in a situation where it's not really healing, and there are times I wake up and it's like I move and oh, here it is again, right? And it's not gonna change, and this just is what it is, right? This attachment to wanting this thing that my ego does not like, this body condition to change. And when it is this journey of constantly coming back, especially in the morning from waking up, and it hits you again, like, oh, there it is. But coming back to this, okay, this is part of this is impermanent, which of course my ego first is thinking, well, it's impermanent because I want it to stop, right? But it's then, that's just that's the ego swirling of its thoughts. The real meaning is this is impermanent, and that it is not part of my atma that is unaffected, right? There's this observer, and it's really interesting. It's actually, even just tying with the Bhakti yoga teachings of like, this is also Ishvara, this is part of the setup, and that it's happening, as you mentioned as well in the last session, it's happening for me. And perhaps this is just happening for me to really realize this power of that separation of saying, accepting this is how it is right now, and there's this part of me that is unaffected, that perhaps it's happening to me because it's really underscoring the point. It's amazing when I'm focused on it, then it's like, oh, this is so painful. But then when I step back and into that observer, into that witnessing, that atma, that sakshi, I mean, it literally, like, because I'm focused, I'm anchored in the self, I'm telling you, it is like it's less the pain, or I'm not feeling it. I'm not focused on it. And so that's like, yeah, this isn't the ultimate level of reality. Look at how my just attention to it or not is changing the quality of my experience. And then from that place of separation, right, what you had mentioned before about this isn't saying, don't engage and don't be defeatist. I'm able to then, whether it's doing some kind of gentle movement or putting, an Ayurvedic balm or whatever it may be, I'm able to, take care of it. But it's from this point of like recognizing, like, yes, there's this part of me that wants it to change, but then there's also this like lightness, this like, you know what? It's whatever happens. The out comes out of my hands, out comes up to Ishvara. Just keep coming back to Govinda, coming back to that permanent. And there's a lightness, there's an okayness there. But it's so interesting to me how just on that physical level, just literally how the levels of the pain when I'm, thinking about it in these different ways shift. That was just really, powerful for me to notice.
Thank you, Kalyani. Yeah, I resemble that remark. There's something to experience which in this work and also in terms of cultivating our witness self, right? Cultivating that part of us which is able to be the observer and witness. And that part of us is so very closely associated with Atman that it is considered a reflected part of Atman, like it's like our shining inner moon self, right? And so to be in that witness state is not to dissociate. It's not to say, this reality doesn't exist. This shoulder pain is not happening, but it is to de-identify. And so, how do I de-identify? It's by being in that space of inner witness and really being that I can observe, as Kalyani has observed, if I can be in my inner witness, if I can sit in that space and take my deep breath and apply my Ayurvedic balm and sit and observe that this body is having an experience. This body is engaged in samsara. This body will change. This body will eventually die. This body, this injury, this moment, this experience, this pain, which is a very different way of connecting with what is happening than I'm in pain. I'm breaking apart. I'm dying. I'm collapsing. I'm having a really terrible day. I'm doing all this. So this, it's a small practice, but it is a huge payoff to be able to sit first with the breath. Even in every morning we wake up and we connect and say, and it may even be before the body rushes in to remind you, before the mind rushes in to remind you, oh yeah, I'm handicapped. Oh yeah, I'm in pain. I'm a victim. I'm wounded. I'm unloved. I'm all of these things. There's a moment, and these tiny slivers of awareness, there's moments that naturally present themselves. And part of the work of Bhaja Govindam, part of the work of Gnyan Yoga is to cultivate more and more of those moments, which gives us space to say, okay, before that's rushed in, before I've gone immediately to my mind's pathways again and again of I'm this, I'm that, the world is that, I'm not that, I am this, is to say, okay, I have like, for example, in Kalyani's experience, like I have a body, I have this injury. This body may be experiencing this. I can love it and support it and do all the things. And I am not that. I have a need to drink water. I'm thirsty. My mind is one thing. My desire is another huge fire. My body is another thing on fire. I have Trishna everywhere. And is there also a place that's observing all of this? Yes, yes, yes. All right, we have some shares. Shraddha, I'm going to call on you to read your share while I manage this voice and this throat and this water intake.
Jai Ma, everyone. And please, Sadhvi Aparna, please take your time. I'll just read it a little more slowly so you can gulp a little more water. So on impermanence, it for the past few weeks, it has been, a day when earlier I would just probably call it more of hormones, but then, these days there has been when you're like completely full of joy and there's no real reason. You're just joyful on a day. And then there are some days when it's, there is again no reason, but you're just a little sad. And then that's the days you're like, you call out to, like as Acharya Shunya said, those days when you say, Trahi Mam, you just call out to your divine mother. So on both the days of sadness and happiness, I've come to realize that, it's okay. Even this happiness is going to be not for long. And even this sadness is not going to be for long. So just to let it go, let it just see how it passes through us and just enjoy, not really enjoy, but just to observe. And but then what is really in our hand to just realize that since it's not permanent, the suffering is a little more in our hands. Do I have to suffer that much when I know that it's something that, is the setup itself? So just coming back to that thought that this is not forever, nor is this forever. And therefore the suffering is definitely reduced. So that has been just a small contemplation for the past few weeks. And, that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shraddha. That's a very important contemplation. Thank you for sharing with us. And that's the practice, right? That is the practice of how we begin to implement this knowledge is observing both the moments when we're suffering and the moments when we feel joyful, and just observe. Just start observing. That observation is the cultivation of the witness mind. So it's important. It's a practice. If we want to put it into our toolkit, that's a practice to cultivate every day. Every day is wait. Let me cultivate in this moment. What is happening? What is feeling as though it's causing suffering? And keep observing that suffering. Where is it a choice of my mind to go down that pathway of prayas, or where is where do I have an opportunity? Where do each of us have an opportunity to choose to go down a different path and to choose to focus on something in a more expanded way, turning our head from right in front of us to that more expansive vision. All right, we have another share from Soham.
It was more just an image came across during my contemplation, which I thought I'd share, which is of a sand mandala, and the in the sometimes these things come and it's multifaceted. It's hard to put into like, here's its image, but it's the beauty and the joy of making this art, which is life, and all of the ins and outs of it. And at the same time, in the image, there's a wind blowing and it's being destroyed and it's unraveling over there. And just that, like, detachment yet still engagement, I found powerful, because there is that joy of how we walk through all of these thickets and all. There's still a way to be able to not have that aversion and not have that attachment, but also just to be, there is that other transcendental joy which can be woven throughout all of the good and the bad. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. That's a I think that's a really important thing that we can all grasp onto gently with open hands, which is that with a different perspective, a perspective in which we are actually focused on the permanent as the real, on Govindam, on Ishvara, on Brahman. When we live in that space, we can observe what is not in that space with that inner equanimity. And perhaps what has been suffering is not suffering. And perhaps what is pleasurable is not pleasurable on its own. Perhaps it's all like a Leela. They call it like the great Leela or the great play. And we can have more and more of these moments in which we can observe. If we observe sort of the setup as a continuum, that our desires and our attachments and our wanting things to be different and our ego and our mind want to grasp on to a split moment of that eternity and think that this is what's happening. And if we can pull back our sight, if we can pull back our understanding and think all of these things that we experience as permanent but are constantly changing, that we hold on to, that we resent, that we get angry about, that we want to hold on to and we love, and then we're sad when they go away. If we can observe all of these from that space of permanence, from that affinity to a longer, a timeless arch, then everything can appear as that mandala. And those winds that come through are just part of that continuing practice, that continuing cycle, that continuing play again and again. There's reasons why, but within samsara, so much of what even we understand through the teachings of Ayurveda, the teachings of yoga, even Jnana yogas, karma yogas, is how to navigate this play in a way that is ethical, in a way that is nurturing towards us all, that is upholding everybody. This is the Dharma teachings. But Bhaja Govindam and this knowledge is really, it's about saying, this is all right. This is all good, right? There's still, yes, samsara exists. There's ways to navigate samsara in alignment with higher values and virtues. This is why later we'll be told to study Bhagavad Gita every day and to hang out in right community and to listen to your teacher and to practice in all these ways. These are all important ways of cultivating an environment within yourself and without, in your outer environment, that are more conducive to letting you be in a space to think these higher thoughts. And ultimately, this is a treatise on don't get stuck in samsara. What do you need to do? Not only to pretty up the cage of samsara, not only to make it a more comfortable nest in samsara, not only to make sure that you are on a beautiful cruise ship of samsara, but also to get past it, to get beyond, to get to the ultimate truth. That's what it's all about. So it's not easy. It's not, the temptation will be to continually, for each of us, the temptation again and again is to come back and we are working on, we are going to, in fact, through this whole study program together, we're going to work on like, how can we work really physically, experientially, mentally with these teachings to break through, but never lose sight of Bhaja Govindam. Never lose sight of the permanent. We're always coming back to it, always coming back, because we don't want to get stuck in, is it putting, rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic? The ship is going down. This is all impermanent. No matter what, good ship, bad ship, it's all going down. Where are we as Atman? Where are we as reflected Atman? Where are we going in this, and what path are we taking, and where are we going? So, yeah. So that's a big ask. It's a big ask, but it's what we're all committing to and getting through. So thank you for that reflection. Would anyone else like to share? I see we have a few people who haven't shared, and I want to give you the opportunity. You are welcome to. And I'd love to hear, maybe Leslie, if you would like to share.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm really new to Acharya Shunya and her teachings, so I always feel a little shy to share, like maybe I'm missing something, and I know I am missing something sometimes. But I did have an interesting experience, and it is related to what we're speaking about. So I was standing on the subway platform, and it was crowded, and a mentally ill person was making his way down the platform. And people were fleeing him because he was a little scary. And for whatever reason, he wasn't really attracting my attention until I looked up and he was right in front of me. And he'd stopped right in front of me. And everybody was, I was sort of in the middle. Everybody had moved. And he was speaking in this sing-song, gibberish kind of way. And I looked at him, and my first reaction was anger. I could feel my brow furrowing. And then I thought about what Acharya says about accept what is, and that I was resisting that. And so, it's taking a long time to tell you this, but it all happened very quickly. So I just said, okay, I'm going to accept this. And I looked at him with something closer to curiosity. And it was so interesting, the effect on him, because when he saw my brow furrowing, you could see he was getting energy from it. He was happy about that. And as I changed to a sort of accepting what is mode, his eyes slid off me to the ground. And his sort of chanting slowed down. And the hostility just completely drained out of the interaction. And it was just so interesting to me that I didn't say anything, and that accepting what is transmitted to him so clearly and drained him of his hostility towards me. So that's my share.
Thank you, Leslie. That's a beautiful example for all of us. Caveat, we're not asking anyone to go up to people with, mental illness that are having, hard times and breakouts. You don't have to make yourself unsafe, but if you are in a space in which you can actively pull this knowledge into your awareness, this is a beautiful example of how we can actively deconstruct our raga and dvesha in that moment through acceptance. not with accepting, you weren't accepting abuse. Leslie wasn't accepting that she was going to be, abused by this person or taken advantage of. That would not have been the acceptance. You wouldn't have accepted physical violence, but you accepted your own response, your own engagement. You accepted what was coming into your field of experience. This is really, really an important discernment. We talked last time, or the first time, I think the first session, we talked about viveka, or discernment. The subtle discernment that is required with these teachings is to discern not between what is preferential and non-preferential, not between our desires and our aversions, but between what is the role of our cumulative egoic mind experience and what is actually happening. And that was a beautiful example of that discernment, that in the moment discernment. And I understand, Leslie, that all happened very quickly. I know it happened in a flash. And these are these tiny slivers of opportunity that Acharya Shunya speaks on. It's like these are these tiny slivers, these momentary opportunities to shift our consciousness, to really look to what is. And the more you keep engaging and keep doing this work, the more these opportunities come consciously and objectively and with awareness. They're always here, but our awareness is often so rarely in that mode. And this is why that first verse, why you keep reflecting on it, keep reflecting, so that in those moments that are happening in a non-stop opportunity of samsara, we have an endless opportunity, but we only have these tiny slivers of opportunity unless we are cultivating them again and again, to be aware. So when those moments come, to be aware that you can be in this state. Some of these are with grace, that they come and all instantly you have an understanding. I'm just going to accept that what is happening first. That creates space. That creates room for an inner objectivity. So this is something that we can all work on. We can all cultivate more of. It isn't about rejecting. It isn't about engaging. It's about it's about cultivating that inner witness self moment to moment and having more of those moments come up. Leslie, you may be new to the community and even new to these teachings, but you are not new to the wisdom. And thank you for sharing. Let's see. Would anyone else like to share? I see a few other faces that have not gotten a chance to share. You are welcome to. Victoria, would you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about, earlier in the week, Acharya Shunya was talking about that we're busy making sandcastles. And I've been thinking about that as it relates to all of this, in terms of, which sandcastle am I busy, creating and holding on to, and then I've had some health things come up, and it's just a reminder that I've been kind of going along, and now definitely not permanent. So it's just, and a lot of I've had a lot of changes in life, kids leaving, coming, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just this constant things are changing. So I'm thinking about it with the lens of curiosity, like what's next. And the more, because the more I can accept that this is what it is, then I can be curious about, okay, well, what comes next, and what how can I, well, what are some things I can do to help that nest feel a little more comfortable, but yet be able to hold, a health challenge, but then, the joy of like my kids coming home for a spring break and those kinds of things, so. And then reminding myself on a regular basis that it will all wash away. All those sandcastles will wash away. So it's just a churning in me right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, this is our first letting go is of this, what are we letting go of is this belief in the permanence of anything other than Govindam. And so this is gonna, really understanding and contemplating that and churning this is the work we've been doing. So Sakshi or Marika, would you like to share? Sakshi?
Emma, I've had this image that comes back every so often when it has to deal with impermanence, and it is something that Shunya ji many years ago when she started speaking about the impermanence, and I had the image, and she gave the an image of the home that you grew up in, and the light is always on, and that's gone, and it's all gone. And I remember a few years ago, my sister called me and said she passed by where we lived, and it was an apartment building that my grandma owned. So it was many of us that lived there. And she said, they're tearing the place down. And that image came back to me in the words of Shunyaji. And I just thought, yeah, it is all impermanent. So I think about that every so often because it is such a powerful image that throughout my life with loved ones who have now passed, and I think of that they're all gone. But I can keep that. I think we can all keep that always in our hearts of the things that we've loved. And I do really love that image that you said, don't hold on to it with, such a grip. Hold on to it with open palms. And that is something that I will carry forward because at times I can still hold on to things, with a grip. So holding on to things now with open palms, it seems much more freeing. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Sakshi.
You're welcome.
Marika, do you have anything you would like to share?
Shema, everyone. These past weeks have been a little bit confusing for me. I've been doing a lot of mananam on several things, and it was playing hide and seek with me. I was carried away by saying, okay, this is impermanent. I don't have to care about it. But when I was sitting behind my computer and I was making my little notes, but when I was confronted with it in real, it made me completely turned upside down. And so I was a little bit lost. And I was very much looking forward to this satsang because it calms me and it brings me together again. I was shattered all over the place with different things. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And I wanted to share as well that the Gayatri mantra is a very fundamental thing for me And it is, besides the Bhaja Govindam, it is a practical tool for me to stay focused without going into contemplation too much, because too much contemplation for me is not such a good thing to do, because I'm really lost sometimes. So I'm trying to keep the balance between these two opportunities. And well, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Marika. I suspect you are not alone in feeling shattered, especially over the last month. There's been a lot of things that have come up. Has anyone noticed that there almost feels like there's a quickening of things coming up, especially since studying Bhaja Govindam in their own lives? Have they found that they are being present? I see a lot of nodding heads. For those of you who are joining us on the recording, there's a lot of nodding heads. One of the, I remember many years ago, Acharya Shunya saying that part of this knowledge is, and part of this path on Shreyas is that it becomes very difficult to sort of straddle both ways of being, both ignoring things and both engaging in things, and that like putting 2 feet on the side on a precipice on opposite sides of a gap, and then we just start splitting more and more. And there's a moment of where the ways that we once lived, the ways in which we once engaged with the world, can no longer, we can't unknow a thing. We can't unlearn what we have known. So we have been exposed to, we have actively chosen to hear this knowledge, to learn this knowledge, to engage with this knowledge. And that choice is a continual process. And we are often in an uncomfortable, there's this uncomfortable space where we may not have leaped there's an uncomfortable space as we're learning to hold with open hands, learning to let go, and I'm in there with you. I'm there with all of you in this, of where we haven't yet fully made this leap to the other side, in full shraddha, in full faith, in full awareness, in full knowledge, and in full practice. And as that time is approaching, this is what Bhaja Govindam is for. This is, it's to solidify that choice, and where I personally find Gayatri, it sounds like you have as well, as the Gayatri mantra is this, it's this beautiful balm and practice to help us and to continue to reassure us of what is there to be found if we just take that final leap over. And that final leap isn't necessarily like complete enlightenment, but it is the final leap towards faith and towards embracing again and again this underlying understanding that, okay, everything that I think is permanent is impermanent. And so just sitting with that first, that's the first thing we're letting go of. And so you may find that over the last several months or the last month that like things have really felt like they're heating up in your life, and have faith. Keep going, keep churning, keep being in that curiosity and that openness. And I'm really glad that we're all here together to keep on that journey together, to be in right community, because it can feel very shattering. It can be very scary. It can be quite a test of the ego and the mind and the heart to be willing to change, to be willing to let go of an old perspective, to be willing to meet things as they are without without an agenda and without an attachment and without our our inner ego self saying this isn't fair, this isn't right, this is there's all these things that come up, and this is a good place to be in that contemplation together. It's a good place, and I'm glad that I'm glad we're here together, and we also have each other in community on the community forum, and there's always that availability, and I want to share that with everyone, that you can always reach out and share and know that you're not alone. You are in satsang, you are in Akula, and you are in good company. I think the only one we haven't heard from verbally is Rochelle. And if you'd like to share, I know you shared in the chat, you are welcome to. And there you go.
Thanks, Aparna Ji. I guess made me realize, wow, I really haven't been focusing on impermanence. This is a great recall to what are we focusing on, and drawing on the impermanence card, to use it that way. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that is like something to reach for in times of trouble. And as we're sharing, we're all feeling our own ways of feeling troubled. And we need the assistance and need each other and the Shraddha and this community and our Acharya Shunya. I did choose the Savitur card, and so I am also using that card to help myself when I think my first dark thought. I notice I'm doing that, and I stop it by the third, ideally, or that's my goal. So that's what I've been up to in the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. For those of us who are joining us online, and maybe you have not heard some of Acharya Shunya's other teachings from this last month, she has been leading a very deep contemplation of the Gayatri Mantra and creating a sadhana or a personal practice around that Gayatri Mantra. And one of the practices has been to choose a single word of the Gayatri Mantra and to go deeply into it as a source of contemplation, which is what Rochelle is talking about. And her word was Savitur, and that shining sun that we understand as the light of Ishvara as well. So when we look to impermanence and we look to permanence, understanding and having a really good clarity on what is permanent is really foundational, because it really gives us a perspective. So this Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam is turning towards the permanent, turning towards those things that do not change, that one thing that is in each one of us that does not change. And what are the practices? What are the contemplations? And what are the ways that we can continue to turn our attention to that and not to what is impermanent? So this is why we are asked to let go of everything that is impermanent, in terms of not identifying so closely with that impermanence, and instead find ourselves identifying more closely with what is permanent. And there is a value judgment here. And this is where we'll start our contemplations on the next session next week, which is that we have a value judgment once we have really connected to what is impermanent. and realize that it is literally the substratum of everything we experience and all of our thoughts and all of our habits and our pathways, our mindset is that all in our relationships, that all of that is impermanent, then why are we holding on so tightly to those things that aren't permanent? What is that holding on? And so this is where, and we'll start with verse 2. But this is where we're really going to understand and identify what are the ways that we are actually still holding on to things, and why are we holding on to them? And what are the things we thought were valuable, all of these worldly attachments we thought were valuable, and how does our forgetting that they're not permanent, how does that alter or color our perspective and our desire and our trishna, this thing that we talked about today, this desire plus greed. So we're going to really dive into that next time, and I look forward to being with you all. We have a few more shares in the chat, and I'll just share those. Victoria shared that she's been using a contemplation from Thich Nhat Hanh on the 5 remembrances that remind us that we are of the nature to die and that there is no escape from death. And this is a profound practice and helps her with detachment. Yes, that vairagyam, contemplating on the death, the inevitable death of the physical body, is a powerful tool for changing that relationship that we have with this physical body, our own and other beings' bodies, is that we remember and we remind ourselves. And so that once that becomes a pattern and a habit of remembering that the thing that I love is not this body. It is the source of the eternal that I experience through this body, my own and others. That becomes a way, that becomes a hammer blow in, so that we create a chink in the armor of our own consciousness and say, wait, this thing, oh yeah, there's an insight in. And then Victoria also shares that she's realizing the urgency to focus on the right things. Because everything is impermanent and can be gone faster than we realize. This urgency is a key hallmark of this text, not from fear, but from addressing what is. We have no idea when the final moment will come, when this physical body blinks out of existence, when this physical body dies and our mind moves on. So urgently take care of this, take care of what's needed externally, take care of what's needed in your relationships, but know that this could change at any time, and our access could change at any time. That may bring up fear, but we have right community and right knowledge, and we have access to these teachings and our guru, and we don't have to be in fear. We can take our deep breaths in, we can allow the hammer to resituate things, and we can always come home to truth. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for your tender and sensitive shares. I want to thank you all for your continued contemplations. I want to invite you all to keep churning. And if you're joining us on the recording, we will be meeting again in 1 week, and we will dive right into our next letting go piece in full clarity, which will be around letting go of our worldly attachments. What are our worldly attachments? How are all of us affected by these worldly attachments? How do we hold on to them? What wrong thinking gets us there, and how to discern them? And then how we can begin that process of letting go, even these things that feel so real and yet are not the absolute truth. Please join me in a final closing prayer together. In this prayer, we are asking Govindam, we are asking that truth, we are asking for the grace to understand what is true and what is not, what is real and permanent and what is not, how to have that discernment. We want to know how to take our minds from the unclarity and the ignorance up to the light of truth, And we want to have support and divine support in helping us to get from our wrong belief that this world, this mrityu loka, this death loka, that it feels so real, this impermanence feels permanent, that the death of our bodies feels permanent. And how do we get from there to this knowledge of the self that is a nectar to us all, to know that nothing real is impermanent, and that which is real is permanent. So please join me. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Jai Ma. Jai Gurudev.